I was standing in a hospice room, feeling as though I was in a fog. I thought Dad would die at home, or maybe in a peaceful place outside, like near his dahlia garden or his beloved vineyard. I thought he would get one last harvest of grapes. It was the Sunday before that Dad had signed the MAID paperwork. It was our last family gathering. Dad took sips of a special bottle of wine. We laughed. We took pictures. He was still trying so hard to be his loving self. It was unsettling for me seeing him spend most of that day sleeping on the couch. I was used to seeing Dad working in the vineyard, the one he planted himself the year we moved to Penticton, the same year he started working at the hospital. That was nearly 40 years ago. At age 71, he had still been doing on-call work as a neurologist when he learned he was terminally ill on Valentine's Day, 2014. We walked together to the mailbox arm in arm after everyone had left. It's the only time I recall ever doing that. I knew that the cancer had spread to his brain. He had read his own CT scan months earlier. He had described his spine as moth-eaten. Now I could see what unbearable pain he was in. He agreed for my mom and I to take him to the hospital, and I watched him wince with every bump on the road. I often wonder how much pain that earlier walk must have cost him. We arrived at the ER doors, where we were met by a team of staff who quickly rallied around him. Once his pain was under control, he happily greeted everyone as they walked by, laughing and joking with them. That was the last time I saw him like that. I was relieved yet stunned when Dad said yes to moving to hospice. This was not part of the plan. This had never once been discussed. The hospice nurse, who knew Dad, settled him in with such tender care. Dad insisted Mom and I go home and get some sleep. We had no idea at the time that he was getting ready to leave us. When Mom and I arrived the next morning, Dad told us that he wanted to stay in hospice and have MAID the next day. He had stopped taking any pain medication as he feared losing the capacity to give consent. I felt as though we had been rear-ended. A flurry of calls, family members rushing to get back to him. When Dad heard he got the go-ahead and that a date and time was set for MAID, he seemed lighter. The rest of us were painfully and silently dreading what was coming as the clock ticked closer to 8 p.m. I had seen death, having worked as a nurse for many years. Nothing prepared me for this. We were all gathered around his bed when the physician walked in. "You look like your father," my dad said to him. Dad's last words were to the physician. As he held the young man's face in his hands, he said, "Keep doing the amazing work you're doing with MAID." "Come back as a hummingbird," I whispered in his ear as I was holding his hand. I felt the last beat of his pulse, and like that, he was gone. We had never talked about what would happen with his body. We packed up the room quickly, not knowing what else to do. It was late. When we closed the door to go, I felt sick. My dad's MAID death was in 2018, just 2 years after it was legalized in Canada. It was such an incredible gift that he could die with dignity on his own terms. I started researching what MAID resources existed for families in Canada, only to discover there were few to none. I recalled my sister saying how helpful it would have been to be able to talk to someone who had been through it. In 2021, I founded MAID Family Support Society, a group of amazing volunteers who have been through MAID with a loved one. Now we support others. Now there is someone to call. I think my dad would be so proud of the work MAID Family Support Society is doing.